Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the BlkWmnAnimator, coming back to you with another video. And in this video, we have Thandiwe Mlauli. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, Thandiwe is the first independent Black woman to build an animation studio in South Africa. So,
Yes,
we would like to start off with, how were you introduced to animation?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so I mean, you watch animation as a kid and stuff, but my first conscious memory where I was like, ooh, I really love this and I want to know what it is, was in grade 10. I had a friend who introduced me to Bleach. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, this style is interesting. What is this? So I was like searching and they were like, it's something called anime. And I was like, what's anime? I don't even know how to say it.
Right.
And I went down that rabbit hole because I was like, what is it with the eyes? That's how I could distinguish between regular animation and anime specifically. So it was grade 10. And once I went down that rabbit hole, I was obsessed with just trying to draw it, trying to figure out how it works. And yeah, the rest has been history.
Cool. So, what is it about your background that made you choose to study producing at New York Film Academy?
Okay, so that's actually an interesting story because when I went to NYFA, I went as a screenwriter. I had applied and gotten it as a screenwriter, and then I really enjoyed the course, by the way, because writing is my first love. And what happened was, I think it was like end of the second semester, one of the teachers was telling us about the writers' strike and how all these writers had to sit at home for like months and months and months, and people weren't working. And I was like, what? I'm not studying all the way in America to sit home and be broke. What?
Right.
So I told my mom, I was like, Mama, listen, they're telling me X, Y, and Z, like, I need to switch courses. And she was like, oh my God, I was waiting for you. I wanted to say it to you, but I didn't want to force you because I know if I try to force you, you're going to resist me. So I was like, no, I really want to switch. And that afternoon, okay, I got it. And they told me what I needed to do. I had to take a couple of extra classes, and then I switched to producing. Yeah.
So how'd you choose producing as the alternative?
I was looking for the program that was going to give me the most leverage because I recognized the whole thing with the writer's strike. Even though, yeah, my worries was about money, but like the real worry was like, how am I going to advocate for myself if people are telling me that writers don't have the most rights in Hollywood and they're like, nothing gets made without writers. So when you just see how people treat writers, it's like, oh, and then I'm a Black woman on top of that. I already knew that the odds would be stacked against me. So I was like, okay, there's filmmaking, there's cinematography, photography, and producing. And I was like, well, let me just try producing and see where that takes me, because at least I'll know how to navigate the business of film. Yeah.
Know the ins and outs. So, going to Film Academy, you're exposed to different mediums. What drew you to wanting to produce animation content?
Actually, what happened with that was the way, because I always liked animation, but they didn't really have, there was an animation department, but it was so separate. Like we never had any classes in that direction unless it was like ethics of video games, which was like the closest you'd get. So what happened was, like, in my final semester, we had thesis, so we had to prepare the thesis over 3 semesters. But in my final semester, I wasn't happy with mine. I was like, oh, I'm not really inspired by this project. So I was like, I want to do an animated project. And everybody was like, in the last semester, are you crazy? Like, how? Because with us, with thesis, we had to like create like it's like a filmmaker binder where you have your script, and then you have your budget, and you break down all the things that you would present to a businessman, essentially, if you're asking them for money. And I didn't have anything prepared for this animated project that I wanted to do. So my teacher advised me, like, don't do it, just stay the course. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. So at the time, our producing chair, his name is Rich Thorne or something like that. And he had a background in visual effects. So he basically sat me down one time. I had a consultation with him, and he was like, "Hey, this is how you break down an animation script. It's a little bit different from a live action. You need to think about the character, background layouts, da 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 da." So and he was like, "This is the average price for one thing," and he was trying to like show me the difference between like 2D and 3D. And so so basically he showed me how to break down the budget, which was the most important part, because I knew how to write, and I knew the basic business structure of how to like present that. So once he did that for me, like it was pretty much a wrap. I was like, okay, now I want to do this like full time, because the amount of research that went into the thesis. After college, like me and my now development producer, he was my classmate at the time, we're like, let's do this for real. Like, let's figure out how to make this happen. So yeah, that's pretty much how we went.
So, did your time in America give you any new or unique perspectives for your journey?
Absolutely. The education itself was so comprehensive. Like, NIFA is really good with that. Like, it's very high pressure because you don't get like a summer break off. So when you're supposed to like a summer break, it's another semester. So with us, we'd only have like 2 weeks off every 4 months, 2 weeks off every 4 months. So we were like burnt out by the end. But it was such a comprehensive program. Like we did like cinematography, sound design, filmmaking. We built cameras up, and like they made sure that as producers we knew each position and each role in the crew. So it was super comprehensive, and like again, because America is such a litigious society, you guys sue for everything. They very quick, like make sure your contracts are good. We had like business law classes and contract law classes. So they really try to like outline those things for us. And those are some of the things that I took back with me here to South Africa, because here it's a little bit more lax. Like people rely on like verbal agreements sometimes if they know you, and they kind of like chill and relax. And I'm like, let's just sign this. I don't want to be chasing you for invoices. I don't want you chasing me for invoices. Let's just protect each other. So yeah, going to America for school was definitely like super, super beneficial.
And I know you got a chance to go to the Black Women Animate boot camp in 2018, was it? Or
yes, yeah, the 2018 one, the very first one they had.
Yeah. So what did you learn there?
Oh, a lot of stuff. What Taylor had, like, you could choose different master classes, because some of them were like during the same time, so you'd have to choose which one you wanted more than the other. So I ended up doing character design and storyboarding, and then character design was with this woman. She's a Black woman. She does like really cute illustrations. I can forget it. Like I'm blanking on her name right now, but if I remember, I'll let you know. But she taught us like character design and like just in terms of like shapes and color schemes, and like why this color works with this type of character and why this type of shape works with this type of character. So it was actually really cool. And then storyboarding, we did it with I think her name is Nyla Magruder.
Okay,
yeah. She taught the storyboarding class, and that was also really fun too. We got to ask them a bunch of questions, and if you ask anyone who attended that year, like Chaz was one of them. That's what I actually Chaz. They'll tell you like I was asking so many questions. Like I was like, and another thing, because I'm like, I don't want to go home and figure this out.
Right. Give me the answers now.
Exactly. But I thought I was annoying, but then at the end, everyone was like, oh my God, you were asking some of the things that I was too scared to ask. So I'm like, well, good.
That's why I be asking questions, because some people be like, I'm scared. I'm like, so.
Exactly. And you paid money to be here, so you might as well get your money's worth. Yeah, but it was such a fun experience. Like Taylor did the damn thing with that whole event. Yeah, for sure.
So even though you're going into producing, how artistic do you feel you are?
I think I'm an artist first. If I'm being real with you, like, so producing is what I studied, but I taught myself how to draw. Yeah, so I did a couple of classes online just to like figure out, the basics, like just the basics of like drawing and anatomy and things like that. But I'm definitely an artist first. Because I write, I draw, I sing sometimes. I was like choir more so I like singing in groups. But Yeah, I think I'm way more creative, and then producing just allowed me to see the business model and the structure. Yeah, how to channel those things effectively. But I think it actually makes me a great leader now because I deal with all artists, and if I didn't have a background as a creative myself, I think I would be harder on people, and I wouldn't be able to do the things that they need that I'm like able to do now. I'm like, oh, okay, do you need more time? Do you need me to like create a skeleton for you? Like, do you need more direction? Like, what is it that would make you more comfortable? And I wouldn't have been able to ask those questions if I wasn't an artist myself, you know?
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. So, why was it important for you to go back home rather than try and stay in America?
Because of just the landscape out here, that like the animation landscape isn't really it is developed to a certain degree, but not for Black people. You have some animation studios out here, but and imagine this is on a continent with majority Black people, but these animation studios are full of white people.
I noticed that looking at some of the studios, I was just like, I'm confused. I am
confusion. Exactly. It's like what are you guys hoping to achieve? And then when there is something with an African storyline, it's animals, and it's like okay, like so it's really strange in that way. But for me, I remember like before I graduated, I had this thing in my mind of like I want to come back with resources. And the first year, because I got to work for like a year after I graduated in the States. And I was really sad at having to come back because I'm like, damn, I don't think I've gotten all the resources that I need and da 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 da. But then when I came back, I realized that I was the resource.
Yeah.
And I was like connected to the resource. Yeah, I didn't have money or like a network behind me or anything like that, but I had people and like people who were willing to help and people who were willing to grow and help me grow as well. So that's kind of how it so that's kind of how that worked out. But I'm happy I came home because it's also exciting when something is like new, you get to define a whole industry, and that's crazy. Right. Like in 2020, as a Black woman, I'm like, I'm defining afro-anime in South Africa. Like, what? That's exciting. You know, it's hard work, but it's very
Black girl magic.
Period, poo. Yes.
So, like, what strategic moves did you make when you returned to South Africa from the States to get you where you are now?
Okay, so the first thing was nurturing and solidifying my relationships. So that was something that I was really conscious of. Like when I got back, I made sure to stay in touch with everybody in the States that I knew, whether it was Taylor or Chaz. I was like, okay, let me keep in contact. Let me let them know what's going on so that at least there's like a back and forth between us all the time. And then it was actually going to my government. I was like, okay, guys, I need seed money to start this initiative and this adventure. And they kind of didn't really get it because, again, animation is not, they don't take advantage of a medium like that. So I had to explain it like in our vernacular, like, like, that's what you'd call them, like, oh, I'm a Popeye, okay. So that's like the slang term for it. So they were like, why this medium? And this is before COVID, right? So like, so there was, now they seeing the advantage of it, but it's too late for some people. But like for me, I was like, okay, please, like I promise you this is a good thing. And I had to like highlight my education. I had to highlight like I have experience, I have resources, I have this, and like I know how to budget. Like that's literally what I went to school for. So I'll distribute the funds the way they need to, you know. So that was the strategy for me was one, solidifying the people that I needed, and then two, the money. So there's people, money, people, money. That's
as an American, it's just so cool to see other countries where people can go to their government for like art.
I know.
Like, they like actually appreciate stuff.
Man.
Like jealousy. So why did you start your studio and what are you trying to offer that's different?
Okay, so I started a studio because I realized actually that I carried the dream of many people. So like what I mean by that is I had all these friends that studied producing with me in different tracks. So like maybe they graduated like a semester later than me, but like I knew that when they came home, they'd be needing a job too. And I know, for example, my development producer, we've been working together since the beginning of our college career. So like I knew what he wanted to do, and I knew the specificity of what he wanted to do. And I knew he wasn't going to find that in any old studio. They were going to make him do other things. And then maybe if he's lucky, he'll branch off because he does development specifically.
Right.
And he wanted to have autonomy in choosing the projects that he developed as well. So I was like, okay. So that gave me the strength to be like, okay, like, let me create a studio and then create new roles for everybody so they can do exactly what they want to do. And when they're happy doing it, then we all make money together. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, my responsibility is creating the home structure. There and then they're good, they can play. So that was kind of like the mentality behind that. But with our studio, I think what makes us different is one is our heart-centered business model. So we immediately knew like, okay, we didn't want to use the Hollywood model and structure. We wanted to create a space that can empower the artists that come to us. Yes. So right now we finished recording the short film like a couple of weeks ago. And like we spent like 8 weeks rehearsing with the cast. So normally it'd be like, oh, maybe 1 or 2 rehearsals and then we just jump into the booth. But we spent a whole 8 weeks. We had them experimenting in different voices and doing different things and getting their confidence up because a lot of them were first time voice artists. So we spent that time with them and we paid them. So it's like, we'll train you and pay you.
Thank you.
To get to that level. So I realized once we did that whole process, I was like, we need to keep doing this. So it's like, even if we, because we're planning on creating this program to incubate more voiceover artists here in South Africa. A lot of them want to do the work, but the industry is so closed up. So we need to figure out a way to pay them so they can pay for their internet connection, so that they can pay for their electricity, because it's like things like that get in the way of people working the way they need to. So it's about utilizing everybody in terms of access. So if they have access to internet, access to data and electricity, then that makes our jobs a lot easier. So we're just figuring, I think that's the model that we're trying to go for. And like even with character design, it's like we offer them a share of, like, if we have merch and you design something that's on that merch, then you should get a cut of that. Or like
yes.
It's those small things that like people don't think, well, I don't know if they don't, again, I'm an artist, so I'm thinking about from the artist's point of view. It's like, if we develop your show, okay, yeah, we're investing and yeah, we want you to pay us back for what we invested, but you should be able to have ownership and leave if you want to leave. And then like if you develop with us and you sell a show, you get to choose if you want us to help you in the actual creating of the show, like show running, or do you want to go somewhere else? Okay, cool, it's your project. You just give us a cut of what we put into you, but you should be able to own to some degree your art. I think that's, especially as Black people, Black and brown people, ownership is what's going to change the structure of art for us.
Yes, that's my thought too. Like when we do our own thing, not necessarily doing it like the status quo, but putting our own spin on it, and that heart piece and the ownership piece, like that's very important.
Super, super important. And can you imagine if you know that you're going to own your show at the end of the process, don't you think you'll give me 100% of everything you got? Because I feel like creatively, you're going to give me that juice because you know that this is your work is on the line too. You're not giving it up. You're not being exploited, or for lack of a better word, like prostituted. Like that's how sometimes art feel. And so for us, it was like we're trusting the emotions, the energy, the feeling first, because as artists, as creators, we're so emotive. That's what pushes us to create. So like if we can create a safe space and a safe container for you to explore that to your fullest capacity, then obviously the work should reflect that too.
Yes. So your story, Sola, what was the origin of writing your story and what is it about?
Okay, so Sola So Sola is the story about this young girl who she finds out that she's a magician in this world where magic is deadly and dangerous. And so there's like this conspiracy in this town where people who awaken to their magic randomly, like they get kidnapped, they just disappear. And so people get really spooked when, like, if someone has a magical awakening, they hide them from the people so that the neighbors don't find out, because you get ostracized. Like, it's like a whole thing. And one of the things with that part of the story is that we're actually touching on the missing girls. How sometimes these girls go missing and you don't know where they are. But for us, the conspiracy is that these kids have magic and the government wants to use them. And so they have these trackers to help identify kids with like latent magic potential. So yeah, so it's like a little sci-fi action adventure, fantasy show. But it was initially inspired by me losing my sister. She passed away like a month before graduation.
Oh, wow.
So that was it was super, super crazy. But after she passed away, I also had my own personal like spiritual awakening. And I went through a series of like events that also, some of them were dangerous in that sense, but like I went through some things that I'm infusing into the show as well, just to show like what happens when you discover your magic, but you don't have discernment sometimes, so you fall into certain traps. Figure out how to get out of them, and then you come out stronger and more wiser. And so all the kids that are on this journey with Sola are gonna go through their own experience. Oh yeah.
Wonderful. So what is the power of crowdfunding and having control of producing your story?
Crowdfunding is interesting. It takes a lot of courage, I noticed, crowdfunding, because the day I had to press send, I was like, because our ask is pretty large, but I think our team is worth what I'm asking for, because they're like the final product that we're gonna have. Like every Black and brown person around the world is gonna be like, yeah, that's our shit right there. Like yes. But for us, it was just a matter of keeping the rights to produce, because like even before, when we pitched Sola, people liked the idea. They liked the enthusiasm and the passion, but they were like, well, if you want to be a showrunner, you have to come up with money to be a showrunner. Like you can't, like in the Hollywood model, showrunners tend to like either invest like a portion of money into the pilot, or they find people who can invest, or either that or they've had experience show running. So it's not just, oh, I created the show, I can write on it too. It's like, oh, you can be a writer and then we'll have another person show run. And I was like, who is this person who's gonna show run, who doesn't know anything about South Africa, who doesn't know anything about like how does that make sense? That makes like zero sense. So because of those experiences, I was like, I'm gonna have to figure out like a side path that's gonna allow me to write, so that I can, even now we're trying to build a writing team, because we've outlined the first season. So it's just about getting certain writers in, and now we get to control the writer's room. Now we can be like, oh, okay, there's a really talented girl I know from Panama who I met at NIFA. So imagine having like Panamanian, is it Panamanian? I don't want to like butcher.
Panamanian.
Yeah. But imagine having a young girl like that, like on our team, and she writes in such an amazing way. And because of the whole thing, we can all like have writers from different spaces, and I get to control that now, and I get to inform them and direct them, and like again use this heart-centered business model to nurture the way they write as well. So it helps. Crowdfunding, honestly, like it was the only option I think I had, but I believe in it, because I'm like, okay, if the people want this as much as they say they do, they need to come help us, donate, hashtag Sola happen, like
yes, make Sola happen.
Yeah, so that's really what it was. It's about sticking to those principles and like making sure that, again, we're advocating for Black and brown people all over the world, and all types of Black and brown people, from each group. So yeah, I think that's really what it is. Like that's the intent.
Yes. So what is keeping people who look like you from entering the animation industry in South Africa?
Access. And access, it's resources. And quite honestly, motivation. Because what I mean by that is like, I found a couple of artists that I liked. I don't think they're quite ready for the task that we're doing right now, but I know in like a year's time they will be. But they need someone who's very experienced to like really, you know, give them notes and help them refine their art to the point where they can be ready for a whole animated TV show. So
right.
but if someone would, like a regular person sees that and they don't see the potential, they'll be like, she's not ready, whatever. But for me, it's more like, who do I link her to? Because there are like a couple of artists. I'm like, who do I link you to just so that, because I want you to work with me, but like I just need you to like refine your craft just a little bit more. It's just a little bit more work, and you like you're close. Like, you know when you're like, you're right there. Yeah. So so like I'm trying to figure out how to link them and how to make it worth the more experienced artists while as well, because like some of them do want to give back as well on the continent. So it's just, those are the type of things that I think keep people from really getting into that space, because they don't have access to stronger artists who can give them critique and notes. And then of course people in studios are not gonna do portfolio reviews. They're not gonna like they don't really care, to be honest. Like they care about their own people. They find their own people. And here in South Africa, it's very tribal, and we are very tribal just in general, but like white Afrikaans people are even more tribal. And so they will hire other Afrikaans students who like they'll nurture their own, you know?
Right.
At some point, I think I stopped getting angry about it, because I don't think I'd want to be mentored by somebody that doesn't like me either. So, because that's not fun. So I was like, okay, let's create something again. That way our artists can feel nurtured too. So we're trying to put money together to create these little incubation programs, these big brother, little big sister, little sister networks, so that we can actually grow. Because I think that's really what it's going to take for this animation industry, particularly for Black and brown people, for it to grow the way I want it to grow. We're definitely going to have to incubate talent a lot more.
Yeah, when I first saw, hold on, let me stop this notification. But yeah, so when I first saw like some animation studios and what their demographic were, I was like, oh, so they be doing the same thing that they be doing in America, huh?
In a country full of Black people, that's what makes it worse. You're like, wow, like there's so many of us.
I Googled, I was like, what is the make, because I know like South Africa is one of the countries with more white people, but I was like, okay, what is the percentage? I was like, oh yeah, they
tripping. They tripping hard. Like, and it was so crazy because I remember it was like 2018, 2019. I remember there was like there was a little buzz about a show, like an African show out of Zambia that hold on. There was a show out of Zambia that it was like Mama K's Team something. So it was like a little superhero show. It was supposed to be like an anime show that Netflix picked up. And so they had like a call. They had a call for like, oh, if you want to write, like submit your stuff and da-da-da-da. So I submitted, and I recognized that the animation studio that was actually going to help produce it is a South African company called Triggerfish. It's based in Cape Town. I think they're white owned as well. So I remember like applying, and I emailed them directly. Like I was really interested, and I know I'm a strong writer, so I'm like, oh, I really want to contribute to something like this. It's really cool. I got rejected. I was like, oh, well, damn.
Yeah.
Like honestly, maybe they did find people that were more suited for what it is that they had in mind. But it's just things like that when you think about. So it's a South African and Malawian co-production with Netflix. And then I'm a South African writer who studied in America, who has American experience and knowledge that can actually contribute. And for some reason, I'm also not good enough for them. So it's like, makes you wonder what are the criteria for those type of decisions. And I mean, I don't internalize it. Like, I don't think I'm not enough. Maybe I just wasn't enough for you. But like for me, I'm like, oh, okay, well, here I am with my own studio now. So what you gotta say?
So like, how do you want to infuse your Africanness in the way you approach animation?
Oh, completely, fully, complete in all the ways, like on all levels, Like, my character designer, his name is Bolaji Olaloye, so he's based out in Nigeria. He's such a dope artist. He's Art Nerd X on the socials. He's got a really distinct style that I really loved the moment I saw it. So we had a meeting. We were like, okay, these are the animes that I like. And I liked quite a few, but in terms of style, I liked like Satoshi Kon style and Hayao Miyazaki style. So like that realistic looking, still soft with the lines, still got that anime feel, but not with the crazy googly eyes. Like those are cute for some shows. Right. But I was like, with this one, yeah, no. So I told them I like the softness of these particular two directors, but I really wanted to look African. Like in terms of their features, their facial features, like all of that. I was like, I want them to, it needs to look African. So we found a middle balance. So what I did is I drew the base sketches, like this is how I think they look. And then he refined them like completely and added color and shading and all of the wonderful stuff that he knows how to do. Right. As an artist. So visually, we knew off rip, like we wanted it to feel African, so afro-anime specifically. Culturally too, we've got some of our characters, like when you watch the short film, you'll hear they actually speak one of our native languages here in South Africa. I specifically found voice actors who could speak that language, even if they weren't experienced in voice acting. But I made sure they spoke the same language so they could speak to each other. So we have some of our local languages in there, but then one of the characters, because basically Sola is set in a 22nd century South Africa. So it's like in the future, but it imagine South Africa if it wasn't colonized by the British, it was colonized by the Spanish. Because yeah, we have the Spanish flavor. Like my development producer is from Puerto Rico, so I'm like, oh, I need to definitely throw him in there.
Right. Just everybody come on.
Exactly. So you'll hear in the film like he speaks a little Spanish because he actually ended up voice acting. It was not intentional, but he ended up being really great. And, and then I was like, oh no, we're keeping you. Like, and he didn't know that he loved it as much as he does. So I like that we opened up a new art avenue for him as well. So it's just like we're at like, I think Sola is what I think the future may look like, of course, with some conspiracies to it. But I definitely wanted to show Black people in the future, first of all. Like, we exist in the future, honey. Don't write us out.
Yes.
Like, but then also just have this cross-cultural exchange, because I really feel like that's super, super important. Like, one of the inspirations actually in the way that I approached this production and the way I approached my studio was Jadena's album 85 to Africa. I don't know if you've heard it.
I saw him tweet you. That's a question. Like, how does it feel retweeted by Jadena? Like, but go ahead.
I know.
With your story.
I know. No, so like what happened was like his album came out last year, and I was like, it was such a like the composition, the themes, everything was just so fire. But when you listen to it over time, you're like, oh, you start to hear what the artist really wants to say. And he was talking about creating this highway back and forth between Africa and the diaspora. And like for Black people in America and Black people in Europe, you guys need a home base. The same way like Chinese people have China, Italian people have Italy. You know, everybody got their place that they can rely on, that they get deals from, that they can economically rely on. So for Black and brown people in the diaspora, y'all need Africa and Africa needs y'all, because you guys also have resources that you can send our way. You guys have education and those type of resources, not just money, that you can offer to us on the continent. In return, that we also want to offer something back. So I remember when that album came out, I was like, ooh, oh shit. I really like, you know, you vibing. And then I think I had a friend who was like, and what are you doing to make Africa a viable place for this highway? Like, and I was like, whoa. She was like, yeah, you can't just like an album and you like the ideas. If there's a highway coming to Africa, what's in Africa that's going to benefit Black people in the diaspora? And I was like, shit, what is here? I don't know. So I was looking, I was like, okay, animation, we don't have that space. So that's why the passion to break ground, it didn't matter that it wasn't there. It was like, okay, I need to make sure that Black and brown animators who are in the diaspora, who decide, okay, fuck Trump, I wanna I wanna experience Africa. Where would you go and where would you get hired? And like who would like teach you about, you know, certain cultural nuances so that you don't stand out, because that can be dangerous on the continent. Like advantage of, you know. So that's what kind of like sparked that for me. I was like, oh, okay, how do we make the highway to Africa? And then what's funny was that I ended up reaching out to the lead producer for 85 to Africa, Nana Kwabena, producers for like Fujidena, like and all that. So I reached out to him by chance. I was like, you know what? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Yes.
So I was like, I hit him up. I'm like, yo, I got this grant with the government, and this is what I want to do. And like, so I pitched it to his manager and like the whole shebang. And I was so nervous when I had the first meeting with him. I was like, what am I gonna say? Is he gonna like, oh my God, you know? And like, and he was like, I love the script. I love how you wrote this. There's a Black doing animation at this time with this type of theme. It's right time. So he was such a supportive force, and he agreed to like do the composition for the short film. Yeah, so that's kind of like, I was like, what? You know, like you're cool, like on like during the meeting, you're like, oh wow, thank you, wow, okay, and then like as soon as you click the red button, I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah, that was to I'm like, oh, what just happened?
That is so cool.
Thank you. So that's like, take as many shots as you guys need to take, bro. Like, because had I not done it, I would have never had him on like a part of the project. And who knows? Like, I don't know. I think other women should, if you want to produce and you want to work with certain people, like shoot your shot and see where it lands. Even if they say no, just anyway. Like that was the worst thing. Okay, he says no. I have to find like a local composer and like figure it out. But like having him in my corner completely shifted the whole team, by the way, because everybody like wants to impress him as well, because he's like the most experienced, right, like in his field. So, and then when he gives us like tracks, like templates, like because we're building it slowly but surely, so when he sends those to us and I'm sending it to the team, like, oh my God, this shit is so fire, like this is what Nana needs to do, da 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 da, like Hans Zimmerman who, like Nana Kwabena next, like type of thing. Like everybody, because he's such a creative genius. That's the thing. Like he's actually a wonderful producer, and like I don't know, his ear is just this. It's magical. It's magical. So yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. So what do you have to say to any naysayers that think you're too inexperienced to lead this production?
Watch the end product. Like that's what I'll say. Watch the end product, honey, because we are some talented motherfuckers. Like the gems that I found on this continent and in the diaspora are phenomenal. Like Chaz is actually one of the directors. He's gonna be one of the directors for the short film as well. Nice. He's just finishing up Batu. But he I was like, hey, you wanna come join? He was like, oh yeah, like I love your work, da da da. So I think we have people with different levels of experience. So there's people who've been in the industry sometimes. There's another director that's also on the team, Justin M. Johnson. He's worked for some time as well. So like we have a couple of experienced people, and then we're like still building the animation team. So like right now we had done the sound and character designs and things like that. And now we're sort of starting to build the actual animation team. And so we're looking at we actually want to bring in more women animators, because I realized it's the boys club still. Like my character designer guy, my development producer is a guy, my son. I was like, okay, this is too much. Like, I need some women to balance us out. Like,
yes.
So that's kind of what we're focusing on for the animation team. We're hoping to get as many women as we can, Black and brown, and even Asian if we find people that we like. Like, we just want to explore and experiment and hopefully, bring it all together. But in terms of, I think on an energetic level, one of the things that we were very conscious about was like, we're not proving things to anyone, because proving sort of implies that you like there's something less about you. Like, oh, I have to prove my worth. It's like, proving we have worth, and we want to show it. We want to refine it. We want to perfect it. Yes, but it's not coming from the space of like, I'm still trying to claw my way into your grace. Like, it's like, no, we're not proving. Like, fuck that. I'm not doing that.
We're just showing.
So that's kind of, exactly. We're just showing y'all what we're made of. And like I said, if with the type of opportunity that we have, everybody's very conscious of it. Like, I was asking people on the team, like, do you want an assistant? Do you need do you need an extra hand? And they were like, no. Like, I want to define my space, and I want to define so everybody knows. I think everybody can feel the weight of what we're doing in terms of having sort of afro-anime and the amount of attention that we're getting and like all of that stuff. They know, they can see the potential of what this could be. So everybody wants to do their best, and I'm pretty sure they are going to do it. So yeah.
So how can people follow you and support you in your studio, particularly with the fundraising part? So
okay, so follow us on Studio Yezi, STUDIOYEZI. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow me at Hey Thandi on Twitter and Instagram as well. We're actually posting our cast release this coming week. Like, we're going to show some of the character designs and the cast and who we have on board. That's going to be really exciting. But basically, what you can help us do is either donate to our Jumpstarter campaign, or alternatively, you guys can help us amplify the Make Sola Happen hashtag. The more people who see it, the more eyes we have, the better, because you never know who you might retweet who on your timeline when you retweet some of our stuff. So we have like a couple of little graphics, and we're designing some more that are interactive to help people understand like how to like really help us. But it's essentially amplifying our hashtag and then giving us the shmula, open up your purse chakra.
Shmoney.
Exactly.
Well, I like to thank you for coming on my platform. Thank you for allowing me to highlight you. And for everyone out there, I would like you to like so I know it's real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Seal the Deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Hey.